Hello, dear friends. I have never seen a message so clear as the one I summarized below. Opinion piece. Grey hats. Lack of courage. They don't play fair. Spiritual lukewarmness. Ethical ambiguity. Neither white nor black. This situation is unfair. It's all about time. This has taken too long. The pioneers of light will win. Should have happened in 2018. Improvements are expected before 2026. There are very few white hats. Light makes darkness visible. War is ugly and horrible. There is more going on than meets the eye. They have not been as brave as they should have been. Controllers are more authoritative. Let's start. Grey hats would be the most appropriate term for the so-called white hats. In the ethical field of computer security, the term hats is used as a metaphor to describe different types of actors according to their intention and action. There were three and only one is good. Grey color is a warm or neutral color that symbolizes monotony and boredom, since it is neither too warm nor too cold. Grey can be associated with lack of emotion or vitality, making you appear drab and boring. Grey can evoke feelings of sadness and melancholy due to its dullness and vibrancy. The great hats are those people who have a certain amount of power and who are not moral enough to be white hats, but partially resist the dark controllers. This includes many nationalist leaders. If the media tells you that someone is cool, then that person is probably a black hat. If the media tells you that someone is horrible, then that person is probably a grey hat. Grey hats are computer security experts who fall somewhere between white hats and black hats in terms of ethics and actions. Its main characteristic is its ethical ambiguity. Grey hats can carry out actions that can be considered both ethical and unethical, because for them the end justifies the means. Unlike white hats who always act ethically and with permission, grey hats can perform certain activities without authorization but with good intentions. Are the grey hats powerful? They are not powerful right now because they lack the will and courage to act. A strong hand is not powerful without enough will behind it. It's just wasted potential. In contrast, black hats are individuals with advanced skills who use their knowledge to carry out malicious activities, such as breaking into systems, stealing information, or causing damage. These individuals only seek personal benefits. White hats are ethical security experts who use their skill and knowledge to resolve vulnerabilities in systems in order to improve security. The white hats follow strict codes of ethics and conduct in their activity. They only look for vulnerabilities and weaknesses to improve security and protect individuals and an organization. Message. As has often been said, the galactics are not the savers of humankind. They are the support. You are the savers, the pioneers of light. You are the ones who have been waiting, says a very interesting message from R. Koch that I reproduce below. However, it is understandable that this prospect would upset or even anger many pioneers of light. After all, the grey hats and the galactics have more technology than the missionaries of light. So, there is a very understandable sentiment that the galactics or grey hats should do more than they do. This situation is unfair. This has gone on for far too long. If you had asked us 20 years ago what we thought was going to happen, we would have predicted that by 2018 the forces would have started broadcasting the truth in the mainstream media. The grey hats haven't been as brave as they should be, and things haven't moved as fast as they should. Few whites. There are very few white hats in positions of power, because moral people don't skip power and they don't play the kind of power games it takes to become powerful. They are also prone to having their planes shot down, smeared, false evidence planted, and their loved ones threatened. They try to get them drunk to film them in a compromising situation. Beautiful women seduce white hats into a honey trap to blackmail them, and try to get them to ingest mind-altering substances, etc. The black hats fear them, and therefore despise the white hats and do not play fair. There are few white hats in positions of power, and they are not organized. However, the grey hats are highly organized and work against the dark ones with some effectiveness. They were talking to the white hats, and they do not play fair. There are few white hats in positions of power, and they are not organized. However, the grey hats are highly organized and work against the dark ones with some effectiveness. Excuse me for the repetition. It is difficult to understand why the forces have not done more to fight the dark ones. They have sworn to protect the Constitution, but in practice they follow orders that go against the people. But immoral orders should not be obeyed, and the excuse that I was only following orders is not valid. Slowness. To be fair, some dark ones are already being removed behind the scenes, albeit covertly and very slowly. There is more going on that meets the eye, and there is a faction that is actively working for the good of the people. A number of disasters have also been successfully averted. Still, they are yet to carry out their takeover in the mainstream media. Why aren't the grey hats going public yet? Well, part of it is that those at the top think they are better, more valuable and wealthy than the common people, and therefore feel they deserve more money, fame, knowledge, power, and control than the common person. And at the top, grey hats understand that if they create a society based on love, they will no longer have more money, fame, knowledge, power, and control than the common person. Another thing that hinders the top grey hats is that some of them lack the courage to do what must be done. The grey hats love to say that they have to fight covertly and very slowly, but that's the lie people tell when they don't live up to their conscience. People always have a choice. There are always multiple paths. The truth is what everyone already knows. That slow and hidden path that the grey hats take is not the optimal one. It would have been better if this had happened years ago. So much suffering would have been avoided. Galactics in plural. The million-dollar question is, why don't the galactics take more action? Answer. Well, we galactics are supporting you energetically. We are helping to raise the energy in your world. We are doing a lot of subtle work, like purifying the water and the air. We have dealt with most of the malevolent galactics and removing the few that remain. We are preventing certain disasters from happening, and we are conducting important special operations behind the scenes. Some galactics have died during these missions. Obviously, you are suffering more than us. Millions of galactics are out of the house right now in order to help. We are willing to take casualties to help. A not inconsiderable number of galactics volunteer for dangerous aid missions, and we look forward to meeting you in person, they say. However, at this time, we don't think it's a good idea to do more than we currently do, although that could change in the future. One problem is that if we land openly and say we are here in peace, then the controllers will order them to start shooting at us. And if we fight back, or if we stay in orbit and take control of the media, then they'd say Earth was invaded by hostile aliens. From the point of view of consciousness, it would not benefit you to be invaded by supposedly hostile aliens, and would also delay the time when we could walk openly in peace among you. Landing in peace would not violate your free will, but taking over the main means would violate your free will. If you were to poll human beings, most people would not vote for visitors who do these things. Atlantis. Then there's the problem that if we hand in an advanced civilization, it may very well not last, and in a couple of centuries we could be back to where we are now. We delivered an advanced civilization in Atlantis, and it didn't last, and we learned that it doesn't work for a more advanced race to push a less advanced race toward a more civilized way of life. This may seem ruthless, but in his opinion, it is preferable that humans be in a difficult situation until 2024, 25 or 26, rather than risk another Atlantis-style cataclysm and the darkness that would follow. This doesn't work when a more developed society uses its force to subdue a less developed society, and then tries to get them to adopt a new way of life. Although the situation is not the same as in Atlantis, it is known from experience that if you invade a country in the Middle East to impose democracy, it often does more harm than good. This would be schizophrenic, since on the one hand you want to spread democracy, but on the other hand you want to achieve your political goals and gain control of resources. Right now, we can't land peacefully and openly because we were shot at. We don't have infinite capacity to sit there and absorb fire. In order to land peacefully, we need the consciousness of the Earth to be higher, so that they do not shoot at us, or we need that there are no controllers who order to shoot. Your forces will do the right thing when Earth consciousness is high enough. The key. So you, the pioneers of light, hold the key to the liberation of Earth and our landing. The key is to raise your consciousness high enough, and by doing so, it will automatically lift all humankind. Do that enough, and you will have a peaceful landing from the galactics. One day, you will be free. It's just a matter of how long it will take for that future to materialize. This is also the strategy we are currently aiming for. Many galactics of many races are waking to send loving, elevated energy to Earth. Combined with your efforts to raise your consciousness and that of the people around you, we will lift humankind together. In fact, we are already uplifting humanity. It may not seem like it, but the consciousness of human beings is much higher now than it was a few years ago. I know that the situation doesn't seem the best, but it is partly due to the fact that darkness becomes more visible, with a great proportion of light. And it's partly because controllers know they are losing and therefore become more overbearing like a wounded and cornered beast. Frustration. This is part of the reason why some pioneers of light feel frustrated and powerless, and it is unfair that they have to fight from such a helpless position against the system. The task of the pioneers of light is to raise the consciousness of humankind and be a beacon of light. Elevate your consciousness, and you will elevate all of humanity. And then, at some point, your forces of light will begin to do what they must do. You are actually much more powerful than the controllers. True, they have more money and many subordinates and institutions that they can give orders to. However, the controllers are unable to track down humanity's consciousness, despite trying very hard to do so. Meanwhile, you, the pioneers of light, are successfully raising the consciousness of humanity. The dark may win some battles, but every day they are closer to losing the war, and there is nothing they can do about it. The controllers wouldn't be acting so crazy if they were really in control. If they were in control, they would act in a much slower and more subtle way, thus maintaining the illusion that they are working in the interest of the people, as they always have. At this point in the film, many people realized that the media and the parties work against the people. At once. 50 years ago, the controllers did not panic and maintained their illusion of justice much better, and the vast majority of people thought that the media told the truth and that politicians served the people. Today, many people no longer believe that. This is a huge shift in consciousness and perception in a relatively short period of time. I understand that today you would prefer your deserved freedom. However, consciousness is already transforming at a dizing pace. Certain galactic rays have taken a century or even a millennium to achieve the consciousness transformation humanity is undergoing in a year. Raising the consciousness of humankind is a process that lasts some time. I hope that living conditions will improve before the end of 2026, maybe even much sooner. Galactic contact could also occur before that time. I understand that a number of people will have perished by then, and I'm sorry, they say. The pioneers of light are actually the most powerful faction of human beings, because they are the only ones that are gradually moving towards their goal. The pioneers of light may not be winning battles, but they are winning the war, because the consciousness of human beings continues to rise. Is the war nice? No. War is nasty and horrible, but they are winning this war of consciousness anyway, and that will lead to the end of all wars. In addition, a new society based on love will be built. That is unavoidable, and in that society the pioneers of light will be the leaders of consciousness. The dark ones will not have any power, and the top grey hats will no longer have more power and money than the average people. This is part of the reason why they are dragging their feet. But we are moving towards a future in which the pioneers of light will be the leaders of consciousness, and both the grey hats and the black hats will lose their power. The pioneers of light are not powerless. They have the ability to change the situation on Earth, but it's very hard and unfair, and I'm sorry, concludes the message. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.